Welcome to the Manager Matt podcast show. The show is designed to give you solutions to your day-to-day management and leadership problems. It's hosted by Matthew Haddock, a frontline manager and leader with over 25 years of experience. If you're ready, then let's get on with the show.
Welcome to the Manager Matt podcast show, a weekly show designed to give you, managers and leaders, the information and tools needed to be the best version of yourself. Now, this week's show, we're going to look at starting a new role off on the right foot. So without any more delay, let's get on with this week's show. Welcome to the Manager Matt podcast show. Hope you are all doing well and getting the results you want through the people around you. And I'm sure you are taking on the advice I'm giving free every week on this podcast show. If you haven't already, you know the drill. Subscribe, send it on, share it. You can watch some content as well on YouTube at the minute. If you go to the Manager Matt YouTube channel, you can see some content there. So this week's show, we're going to talk about starting a new role on the right foot. Now, we all know that we are going to be, at some point in our careers, moving roles, moving to a different position within companies or usually externally. And we know that starting a new job with a new business is part of the modern way we work. It's very rare that you're going to stay in one job with one company for your whole life. But if you have, well done, good for you. I'm sure your pensions are all sorted. So you're going to need to make sure that when you're moving into a new position, in a new role, in a new company, that you're starting off on the right foot. You've got to make sure that you're choosing and displaying the right values from day one. And that means that you, when you walk into that first day, you are doing the right things at the right time and showing all the people around you that you are leading by example. And of course, we all know people work for people. And the best thing to do is to make a good impression, a good start with those people around you. And then you can take them on the journey wherever you are going as a manager and a leader. So let's start at the beginning. What a great place to start as ever. So how do you start on the right foot? Well, I've always found that if you're going in somewhere and you don't know any of those people and they're going to be looking at you on the first day, there's some basics you need to get right. Dressing right, looking smart, making sure you've done all the things that you should do normally. I know this modern world is quite relaxed. And I know that it's less formal than it is, and it's probably unlikely that you're going to wear a tie anymore. I know when I started working, it was a standard that the managers would wear a shirt and a tie and trousers. And before my time, it would have been full suits. But things move and change, and you'll soon pick up what the dress codes are. But if you're going to be a manager and leader, I think, in my personal opinion, turning up smart, turning up ready to work is the right way. Trousers, shirt, a pair of shoes, or whatever a lady would wear to make themselves comfortable. If when you get into the flow of the place after a few weeks, you realise that you are dressed far too formal, you can always come down. But there's not worse than turning up if you were in a pair of jeans and a t-shirt and everyone's dressed formally. So it's really good to get that first right. So those are sort of hygiene factors to do. But when you get there, remember the basics of any human interaction. Start with being honest. Be honest with people. You don't tell them all and everything in the first 2 minutes of meeting them, but you don't want anyone to think that you're coming in there with a hidden agenda, especially if you come in as a leader of people and some of those people in the room might have already gone for that job, may have been turned down for promotions in the past, and you're walking in there. You need to make sure you're being honest with them on why you're there and what you want to do. You need to respect those people. You know, they're going to be unsure of who you are. They're unsure what you're coming. So, respect the people. Introduce yourself. Talk to them as humans. And on day one, do those basics. Be on time. Make sure that you get there with plenty of time to get in. Usually when you start in a new position, it's not great. There's going to be stuff everywhere. Your IT won't be set up. Your pass won't work. There'll be something that's not quite amiss. But on day one, you want to make sure that you're setting the tone, coming on the right time, getting there early, making sure that you're at the right gate. I remember once I went for a job, and the first day, I hadn't had the interview on site. It'd all been done over online as it was in certain times. Turned up on the first day, gets there, rings the HR woman. Nobody answers. It's all strange. So walks down to what I thought the entrance, bangs on the entrance, nobody's there. So I get a phone call back from the HR woman. Where are you? I said, well, I'm here. I'm at work. Oh, no, you're not. I'm looking out the window and you're not here. And I'm like, well, I can see the company logo. I'm here. She went, You're not at this warehouse, are you, down the road? It's about 10 minutes. I put the wrong code in, gone to the wrong place, ended up in a completely empty warehouse. So we laughed about it. You've got to be human, and I just parked my ego and just laughed and said, well, this is a great start. And, it was fine. But little things like that, checking the postcode, make sure you're right. And, of course, on day one, make sure you're smiling. Make sure you're happy. Make sure you're greeting people. Back to that point, respecting everyone you do, and make sure that you're doing the right thing by those people. So when you get into work, you're going to be making sure that you're doing those first things impression. And of course, right away, you're setting the standards. If you are going to be the leader in there, you want to set the standards. That doesn't mean being draconian from day one and demanding, but it's making sure that you are asking the questions around the systems, challenging them. You're asking the stupid questions. There's definitely nothing wrong with asking the stupid questions. And I still think I pride myself on asking dumb questions because it gets people thinking. And although they might think, well, why doesn't he know that? You're expected when you get there on day one not to know everything. Of course, as things go on, you need to make sure that you're moving forward. So when you've got your first day out of the way and you've got those hygiene factors, you know where the canteen is, you know when you know where your break room is, you know where your office is. If you've got an office, you can get your laptop to work. You figured out those things. You've started to meet the people, forgotten all the names, because that's what you do. You meet all these people. They've only got one name to remember. You're going to try and remember 50 names. It's a nightmare. It takes a while, especially if you're in a great multicultural society that we live in. They're not all going to be all English or whatever names where you're from, so you're going to have such a variety of names to learn, and that's brilliant. That's the greatest thing. Some places are brilliant. Some have pictures on the walls of all the staff, so you can see the faces and maybe go back when you've met them and just memorise it. I've done that before. Some places, I remember one place, all the names were on the hard hats, so it was really easy to remember them, which was brilliant. But if you're not looking at it that way, you're just going to have to work through it. And if you're working in environments where there's a lot of protective equipment, it can be very difficult. When we had the issues with the pandemic, everyone had masks on. Very hard to see faces, but you'll soon pick that up. And then, of course, you've got to get off on the right foot, making sure you are influencing. So how do you influence the people around you and make sure that you're going the right direction when you start in day one? First is listen, listen, and listen. Listen to the people around you. They'll know everything about the business. They'll know the ins and outs. They'll know the quirks. Listen to what they are. And I mean proper listen. Not listening just to reply, but listen to really take in and learn. Firstly, about that person. Learn the person, listen to the person, ask the questions around them. And then secondly, around the business itself. And then thirdly, around the culture and how it works. Those are some of the good areas to listen for. Walk in their shoes. Go and walk with them. Try to spend a day in their life if you can. If you've got a direct that's working for you, take some time, walk around the place with them. See what they do, where they go, what does she speak to, who does she do, what's her day look like, what time does she start? And then look for areas where you can support. And in your first couple of weeks, you're not going to say anything. Remember, it's listening. You're in a listening phase. So you're not going to say anything about what you're seeing, but you're making a lot of notes. Taking the time to write down exactly what you're seeing, what's happening. And be part of that drive to improve. So you're going to be seen as that person who's there to help and not to hinder, not to hold people back, just to be a driver, not an anchor. Because the first bit of this influencing is gathering the data. You're gathering the information, you're listening, gather, listen, walk in the shoes. What problems can I help these people with? Where can I add value? Because that's when you're really going to get off on the right shoes, is actually right foot and right shoes, because, they go together, is getting to make sure that you are really building up the data, listening to the people, and then you can then influence and make sure the decisions you make in the future are the right ones. Now remember, some of these people will have agendas. Some of these people will have past been burnt by managers who've taken stuff. So you're going to have to make sure that you're listening to the right people. You're taking your own time to judge them. You don't take everything at face value. You know that. You've got to kind of work through it. Some people might have been burnt themselves by things in the past and mean that they've got a bit of a grudge around management, leadership, the person who's taken you on maybe. So you're going to have to work through that noise, that white noise, because that's human interactions. That's how it works. And that leads me on nicely when we're talking about a new role on the right foot to what are the pitfalls. Don't be the expert day one is my real advice to you. On day one, don't walk in there being that I know everything, I've been there. Even if you're an expert, if you're going into a nuclear plant and you're the world's most famous nuclear scientist, Don't go in there thinking you are the expert, because there'll be certain things you want to learn. I don't know anything about nuclear power stations, so maybe that's a bad example, but you know exactly what I mean. Don't let your arrogance is not your friend in this instance. You don't need to be the person who knows everything from day one. You might have been sold as this person coming in, he's done this, she's done this, he's going to be this. But remember, you're working with people and they will make or break you. If you get a bad dressing room around you, if you like, if you get people who are switched off to your message, or you haven't sold it right, or they don't like the way you've approached your first few days, they'll say it to the bosses and they'll get back to you in a different way. And it's hard to get that back. First impressions, they make a massive difference. Remember, silence is a good thing, but not too much. It can be unsettling. So when you are in a situation where you're listening, make sure you're active listening. So don't be too quiet. And beware of people, you might not meet as honest people as you think. So that pitfall is, be aware. As I said at the beginning, you have to be open with them, you're going to be honest with them, but just be aware there may be some underlying issues in there. And then you move on. So you've got yourself in there, in your new role. You're starting to feel that you're getting there. It won't happen overnight. This takes a few weeks, even months in complicated businesses. Sometimes it's 6 to 7 months and I start thinking, oh yeah, I get this now. And then there'll be some curveball that come and I think, oh, I didn't think of that. That might be just the way I work, but I think that takes time. But you will become, you'll become expected, to get in there eventually. You're going to become the person to go to, eventually going to start doing your role. You've got to do it because you're going to have to make your money back. So remember to be aware of not becoming too native. A friend of mine once warned me not to become the native, and I thought, what does he mean? Well, when you come in as a manager and you've got these new fresh ideas, you can soon slip in over the first few months to becoming the native. You start to look at becoming that person who just accepts what the norm is. So when you're coming in, avoid becoming the native by doing things like looking at small wins. Can we get some small wins in there? Therefore, you're doing something different. It's not the same. You're not the same as it was before. You want the team on board, so you're making sure you're doing something different with that team. That's probably an engagement piece with those, talking to them about the things we've talked about. Obviously, you know what I'm going to say here. It's about one-to-ones. It's about feedback. It's about coaching. It's about delegation. It's about empowering. It's always going to come back to those big five. Challenge the norms and never stop challenging the norms, because you become a native when you just accept them and you start saying, oh, that's just the way it is. That's just the way that person is. That's just the way the system works. Don't become that person. You want to become accepted, but you don't want to become the native. Think of it that way around. Get to know the position, but also, as I've said, get to know the people. They're going to be the big drivers that make you a success. So let's just recap on what it's like when you're starting a new role. Firstly, do things right on day one. That sets the tone. Be honest with people. Respect the people around you. They're the experts. Be on time. Be smart. But set the standards you expect. Then influence. How do you influence? I'm sure you remember. Listen, listen, listen. Walk in their shoes. Try to fix their problems. Some of the pitfalls. Don't be an expert on day one and park your arrogance. And then you need to become accepted, but don't become the native. And that's it. Simple as that. When you get your new role, you're walking straight in and you'll fit in no time. I'm sure you will. And thinking of all that, I did mention earlier about feedback, and I'm still keen on taking as much feedback as I can. So remember, the email address is always available to you 24 hours a day, every day of the year. That's it. 24 hours a day, every day of the year. And it's managermattpodcast@gmail.com. Don't forget it. It's to cost you nothing to email me. Ask me some questions, give me some feedback, say what you want in the next show, and I will happily name check you and write a show around that. That's it. So send me that to managermattpodcast@gmail.com. Right, well, that's it for this week's show. Thanks for listening as ever, and I'll speak to you soon. And goodbye.
Thank you so much for listening to this Manager Matt podcast. We hope you found it interesting, helpful and actionable. One last thing, please leave a quick review on iTunes or with your podcast provider, as it helps to spread the word of Manager Matt. If you haven't already done so, please subscribe to the podcast, and if you did like anything in particular, send an email to managermattpodcast@gmail.com or visit managermatt.co.uk for more content. Feedback is a gift, so let's keep giving. See you next week.